Welcome to the Commentary Magazine Daily Podcast. Today is Friday, August 15th, 2025. I'm John Podhoretz, the editor of Commentary Magazine. I want to point out before we go on any further, this is the 80th anniversary of the official conclusion of World War II. So thank you to the greatest generation and to Western culture for saving humanity in the world. And that's just all I have to say about that. With me, as always, executive editor Abe Greenwald. Hi, Abe.
Hi, John.
Senior editor Seth Mandel. Hi, Seth.
Hi, John.
And Washington commentary columnist Matthew Condetti. Hi, Matt.
Hi, John.
Okay, we have to talk about Trump and Alaska and the summit and Putin and what's going to happen. But let's face it. Do we really care as much about that as we care about the guy who threw the sandwich? I think we need to dilate a little bit
the answer's
on
obvious.
The meltdown, on the complete meltdown of the American cultural elite in the face of the President of the United States saying, you know what, Washington, D.C. is a cesspool of crime, and I'm going to take 30 days to see if I can do something to make it a little better. And the idea that this is the incipient arrival of the Waffen SS, the jackboots, the Il Duce, just name your fascist. And of course, our friend, I think his name is Kerry Dunn. His last name is Dunn.
Sean
Dunn, excuse me. When he went up to the, is it an FBI guy? I think it's an FBI guy.
Okay. I'll just say.
Okay, just give the fact.
This is from the Washington Post. A man arrested in D.C. on Sunday night is facing felony charges for throwing a wrapped Subway sandwich at a federal law enforcement officer, Janine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and Matt Continetti's newest favorite member of the Trump administration, announced in a video posted on X on Wednesday afternoon. Video of the incident, which took place near the corner of 14th and U Streets Northwest, shows a man in a pink collared shirt, shorts, crew socks, and New Balance running shoes, yelling at several law enforcement officers while holding a sandwich. As he turned to walk away, he hurled his hoagie at the chest of one of the officers and then ran off with the officers in pursuit. The video, which has gone viral, does not show the man being arrested. Sean Charles Dunn approached the officers, according to the court documents, and began yelling obscenities and calling them fascists. At about 11:05 p.m., according to the federal court ruling, Dunn approached an officer and threw a sandwich at him. He was charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers and employees of the United States. Following his arrest, Dunn allegedly told one of the officers, "I did it.
Okay.
I threw a sandwich."
Many things are raised.
You're damn right I did, in Jack Nicholson.
That's right.
Excellent.
You can't handle the hoagie. Okay, first of all.
What kind do we think it was?
Well, I'm going to go with Italian.
The BMT?
But on the other hand, given the physical model, if you see Mr. Dunn, what he looks like, how he's dressed and all of that, it could just be the veggie special. Let's face it. I mean, it doesn't look like. I think you could assume that he watches his diet carefully and may oppose the use of animals as meat products. Even as we hear, by the way, that Beyond Meat has gone bankrupt. The fake.
Really?
Fake beef, which is not good. The Impossible Meat is better than the Beyond Meat, so I think this is not all that surprising. But just to get back to it, so this is one of the great viral clips of the age of the viral clip, and I will be watching this roughly every day of my life until I pass this mortal coil, because what the story does not quite get at is Mr. Dunn's comportment right before he throws the sandwich. And by the way, when we say throws the sandwich, he's 6 to 12 inches away from the law enforcement officer.
Right.
He's not like 3 feet away throwing the sandwich. He is literally jumping up and down or bending his knees and jumping up and down like a cartoon character, like Reggie or Moose or Archie getting angry in an Archie comic. He's jumping up and down in his cute little shorts with his little socks and screaming, though you can't hear anything coming off of the video except the guys who are filming it going, "He crazy." That guy is crazy. So there's an essentially comic nature to this, because he looks like when my daughter Shiri was 2, she would have these hilarious tantrums where she would literally turn bright red and jump up and down in place in a rage. Calmest person who had ever existed, this adorable child. And so this was funny, not really like concerning that she would have this fit. And then he takes his hand and he bends it back and he hurls the sandwich. And take this as you will, I'm making no other comment on it. He throws like a girl.
Okay, I have to interrupt you. This is breaking news. According to the New York Post,
Yes.
a witness said the sandwich was likely a Subway BMT with extra banana peppers. And it's hard to tell whether it was a 6-inch or a foot long.
Right.
So this could cast a whole new...
Yeah, like a 6-inch could be a
case in a whole new light. Yes,
yes.
Foot long would be a felony. Yeah. Then another crucial piece of information we should mention, according to another witness, this is now reported in the New York Post, America's newspaper. The witness said Dunn seemed to be quite drunk, and that served as part of the motivation for filming the meltdown. So in case people were wondering, yes, he probably was drinking and before this.
Well,
What is a BMT? I don't know what a BMT is.
Oh, it has like the Italian deli meats.
Okay, so I was wrong.
Wow.
He's not a vegetarian. The BMT, of course, is a subway line in New York, so it's interesting, or was one of the subway lines in New York before they got rid of the Irish.
There's another detail that's pretty important here, which is that at the time he threw the sandwich, he was an international affairs specialist in the criminal division of the Office of International Affairs at the Department of Justice.
Well, of course.
Which
he was a DOJ criminal justice specialist,
which he is
who threw a sandwich, right? And he obviously has since been fired.
Yes. So, and he was saying
it's a deep state. You see, Trump was right. It's a deep state.
Shame.
Throwing sandwiches and everything.
From what bystanders reported, he was saying, shame. You're a fascist. Get out of my city. Now, first of all, how does he know where the law enforcement are? Maybe the law enforcement officer lives, on 14th and V. Could be his city too. Presumption that this is Dunn's city is a rather large presumption. And of course, the capital city of the United States is nobody's city, and it's certainly not the city of the 37-year-old expert in international justice at the the Department of Justice as an affairs specialist. Where is Doge? Where is Doge? I want that department eliminated. Let's eliminate that department. Who needs it? We have a State Department. I don't know what on earth we're doing with that Department of Justice, but Doge is still there, I think, and so somebody might want to take a look at that whole office. But let's talk about, this is a hilarious thing, and the clip is hilarious, and it is a kind of comic crystallization of the culture war that Trump has, incredibly fortunately for him and for the right, stepped into on, I think, what was mostly an impulse to do something when he heard that this kid was beaten up in DuPont Circle. Big Balls, the young Doge kind of like prodigy, at 3:00 in the morning, defending his a woman that he was getting into a cab while they were being assaulted. Because the exposure of the sort of the root ideology of the Washington liberal elite that is being made by how people are responding to something that is not all that complicated, which is there's a crime emergency. President says he's sending the National Guard in for 30 days to establish order. Law says that he has the right to do this without even, for 30 days. So he's doing it, and it should be over by September. And one thing you could say is, well, let's see how it goes. Like maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it won't. If it fails or if it doesn't do anything, then he can be, could say that basically he's a fool and he did something ridiculous.
Yeah, we should say that the 30-day limit applies to Trump's takeover of the MPD,
right,
the Metro Police Department.
Right.
There is no limit on his ability to use the National Guard.
Right.
In Washington, D.C.
Yeah, the National Guard is ordinarily under the control of the governor of the state from which the National Guard is called. And there is no governor of the District of Columbia. In fact, the entire existence of the municipal government of Washington is by sufferance under a 1974 law that Congress passed that Congress could overturn at a moment's notice. There is no constitutional authority. There is no federalism. Does not entirely exist in the existence of the District of Columbia, which was not imagined as a state with the rights of a state. Right. Okay. So Trump says, "I'm going to do something about crime in D.C." Irrational opposition would not have taken this bait. I think it's now very clear, like 4 or 5 days in. Rational opposition would have said, whatever, there's more important things to talk about. He's gonna take away your Medicare, or he's gonna cut your benefits, or whatever.
Or inflation.
Yeah, inflation, which actually we did get
getting some bad data.
Very bad data, but that was
prices.
Thursday. That's right. But he pushed a button, and it turns out that this is what they care about. What they care about, what his opposition cares about, is the incipient fascist takeover of the United States. And that is top of mind. It is right at the forefront of their brains. And no matter what he does, it is a form of an incipient takeover of the United States by fascism, including naming 5 people to win Kennedy Center honors, saying that he would host the Kennedy Center honors. Everything that he does,
scrutinizing the Smithsonian presentation of American history, which one guest on a talk show yesterday likened to the Taliban taking over Afghanistan.
So, Abe, Trump, been saying this for years, but we've talked. Trump has some demonic power over his adversaries. I don't know how else to describe it. There's a movie called Wings of Desire Wim Wenders made in the late 90s, in which angels, one of whom is played by Peter Falk, who it turns out is an angel, not Peter Falk, but he is actually Peter Falk, kind of stand behind you and sort of whisper in your ear about, like, don't walk into the street there, and then you don't walk into the street and you're not hit by a car, or that's a nice person, maybe you should go talk to them. This is how the angels manifest themselves. It is as though Trump is the reverse image of that. He is the guy who just stands there and then somehow in the ear of the sort of liberal commentariat and intelligentsia and educated elite says, I'm going to take over. I'm going to come and arrest your mother. And then they go, oh my God, he's going to arrest my mother. And then everyone's like, what are you, crazy? It's just like trying to enforce the law because there are carjackings and there are homeless encampments in McPherson Square. I mean, people who don't live in Washington or don't spend any time in Washington you can't really understand that the center of the downtown of the city, there are 2 or 3 squares: McPherson Square, DuPont Circle. There's one other I'm forget, like that are homeless encampments. I mean, like that around them were fancy restaurants and office buildings and where people worked, and indeed cabinet departments. And there are now 200 homeless people living in this, and nobody has done anything to say, this is the nation's capital. Move along. You can't be here because, like, diplomats are coming through and tourists are going, like, this is our showplace for America.
Look,
and they're all fine with it.
It's this simple. There are millions of Americans for whom any Trump success ruins their lives. It ruins their lives. And they are responding as people who have been broken by events. It started election night 2016, and they have been in a state of ruination ever since. They got a reprieve with Biden, but they can't. Now they are re-traumatized. The fact that he is more popular by a significant margin than he was during his first term, more successful, more productive, won by a much more robust number. They cannot believe it. They can't understand that they are sharing the country with people who don't see things exactly as they do. And that is making them literally crazy.
But we don't even know if this is going to be a success or not, right?
But
I mean,
the
you
fact
could say it's
that
an
he implemented it is the success already.
Okay.
It's also
and we should just say, like, the fact that they went to one of the encampments yesterday, and the residents of the encampment handed them permission slips that the city had given them to stay until the end of the weekend, and they accepted that and left them alone. Like, if you had a permission slip from the city that said you have till Monday, then they walked away from you. So there is a limit to, in practical fashion, the fascism descending upon America narrative here, because what you mostly have are people standing around.
I think we have to also take in mind the location of Trump's anti-crime effort. Washington, D.C. is the most democratic municipality, but certainly that sends a shadow representative to Congress. Trump lost to Kamala Harris 7% to 93% in 2024, and that was an improvement over his previous
97.3, I believe, against Biden, right? 97.3.
I think it was even more. I think he only got 97.3 against Biden, right? So this city is a kind of neutron star of liberalism, and so it's uniquely conditioned to go off when Trump decides to use his leverage to get some results, whether it's clearing out the tents, or whether it's trying to do something about crime, or whether it's trying to make the tourists who are still in the city, it's summertime, you see them around, feel safe when they're on the National Mall or going to some of the museums or the hotels. I also think it's very interesting that this person, the sandwich thrower, sandwich man, has been lionized by liberals for his act of resistance. Washington Post reporter saying that the man who hurled his hoagie at law enforcement in D.C. becomes a hero to many residents. This is Dan Egan's post on X. And one of the replies, interestingly enough, is from Karen Tumulty, the longtime Washington journalist who was recently moved from the Washington Post opinion section to take over Dan Balls' spot of political analysis in the news section. Not that there's any difference. Karen simply replied with a link to a video of the Bonnie Tyler song "Holding Out for a Hero." So
what?
Yes.
What did you just say?
she replied with the link to a song by Bonnie Tyler called "Holding Out for a Hero." Now, is this some type of sophisticated pun? Because of course, the hero sandwich, or is it Karen Tumulty saying, you know what? The affluent white liberals who are in the midst of a psychotic breakdown simply because Trump wants to do something about crime, they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right.
Heroes don't only wear capes. They throw sandwiches at
they
people.
Go to Subway.
They throw sandwiches at people. But
my theory is that Sandwich Man is Pajama Boy all grown up.
Oh,
grown up.
Yes.
Okay, this is good.
This is what became Pajama Boy.
And blonde.
Yeah. So
he dyed his hair.
Yeah. So
again, with the sequel, this is the DC cinematic universe, of course.
Meanwhile, in the New York Times, over the last couple of months, clearly responding to reader satisfaction, the Times has been publishing twice a week articles about women and men and how women cannot find a man that they can bear, or men won't date them, or men are ghosting them, or they have terrible experiences with online dating where men send them one email and then don't send them another one. That kind of thing. Over and over and over again. 8, 9, 10 pieces. So my presumption is that this is a Pavlov's dog's response from the editors, that they publish one of these things, they get some huge readership. So it's like, let's commission another one. Somebody else has another story like this. Why do I bring this up? Because from Pajama Boy to Sandwich Man, this is liberal masculinity 2025. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, a guy goes up to a law enforcement officer who makes half of what he makes. It's like a classic dynamic from the Vietnam War, where you'd have these national, like at Kent State or places like that, these National Guardsmen who are 19 years old, just like the students. And the students come up to them and start abusing them, screaming at them, yelling at them, coming at them in large numbers. They're kids. They're working class. They don't get to go to college. They didn't get to get a deferment to go to college. They went into the National Guard instead of to Vietnam, or as a different form of national service. And they're being abused. In New York City, cops routinely get abused by people who make twice as much as they do and are in a higher social class. This is the only circumstance, I think, in America in which this would be permissible because of the weird attitudes toward law enforcement. But when you see Dunn screaming at this guy who is standing there at the corner of 14th and U through no fault of his own, he has been deployed there. He is a person who has been sent there by a superior. He is not the author of the policy. He is not the policy maker. He is a piece on a chessboard.
He's also not even doing anything.
He was just standing there.
The people, that's what's, again, another comic aspect to this policy is the National Guardsmen and the federal agents just seem to be kind of hanging around.
Which is what it means to provide public safety.
Eyes on the street, right? Classic Jane Jacobs concept. If you want to deter crime.
Or flood the zone.
Right.
Classic rule is flood the zone in a high crime area. And 14th and U, there are two comic aspects of this too. When I moved to Washington in 1984, the idea that a person looking like Mr. Dunn would be standing at the corner of 14th and U would have been science fictional. I lived about 5 blocks from 14th and U. I drove down U Street to go to my office every day. This was not an area in which a white man in shorts and New Balance sneakers would have been caught dead at 11 o'clock at night. So,
well, unless he was soliciting, unless he was there.
But he is now, so it is now his city. That neighborhood is his neighborhood. I mean, it's gone through gentrification. It's long since. I'm using like 2 generations ago as my example. How did he think that it was, by the way, in this city that has now, had a terrible crime surge since COVID? How did he think that it happened that he was able to come and live in that neighborhood with his and go to a Subway and get his sandwich to walk to his house with? A crime drop. Law enforcement that happened even in the District of Columbia in the 1990s when the crime drop happened. Washington, D.C. had a huge turnaround. It was the least safe large city in America. And then basically cities became relatively safe for the next almost 30 years until COVID broke the social contract down. And bail rules and liberalization of criminal justice policies.
It's also the case that I think, as someone who grew up in the D.C. area, lived here pretty much my entire life, has lived in the district, and then has lived in Virginia, but always been working in the district. After 9/11, security in the District of Columbia skyrocketed. And it seems, in retrospect, that those years of Bush were actually some of the safest years in the district for a while. And it may have been exactly for this reason that D.C. turned into a heavily guarded fortress for much of the 9/11 period and the onset of the global war on terrorism. Of course, as that has receded into the past, we let our guard down. We began defining deviancy down again. You started smelling pot everywhere you went. The tent cities started appearing. And then, of course, the summer of George Floyd and the ensuing crime spike 5 years ago. This kind of countermeasure, if it works, would have a similar effect to that post-9/11 security spike, where all of a sudden, criminals are deterred because there are just a lot of people out there who represent the long arm of the law.
Anyway, this is just political suicide. It's political. I don't care. These are people I do not want to be in power. I don't like them. I don't like their policies. I don't like who they want to elect. I don't like, what kinds of things they want to implement. But it is a little unnerving to see the break with reality that one of the 2 major political parties is currently undergoing.
There's a great example of this in USA Today, where they described a woman berating some of the National Guard troops. In the photo provided on USA Today, the woman who was heckling the National Guardsmen was white, and the National Guard's personnel were minorities. So that too, revealing with all we understand about the laptop class and white liberals. But she said 2 things to them in her screechy voice. The first was, "Shame on you," and the second was, "I wish you didn't have to do that." So it's a complete cognitive dissonance, because the "shame on you" implies they have some agency, and then "I wish you didn't have to do that" it has sympathy with them as being directed by a higher authority. But I think that's representative of just the mental crack-up that's happening in the minds of most of progressive America.
By the way, it's real. I mean, there's study after study that shows that there is a mental health gap between liberals and conservatives. I mean, there are much higher rates of depression and anxiety among liberals. That's just a fact.
And we keep hearing why, because it makes sense that even though they are much more therapized class of people, which raises its own set of questions about the therapized culture, that the messages that they impart to each other are: the planet is melting, men are monstrous, late capitalism is a systematic injustice to everyone.
COVID is everywhere and going to kill you.
America was born in original sin, not in pursuit of religious liberty, and here we all are
under Trump.
And what do we and what do we have to look forward to? What is it that we, and we know they have children. They have far fewer children than conservatives do. They marry later. They're much more ambiguous about the virtues and qualities of the family and of the kind of community that is the classic way that Americans organize themselves into communities, which are around institutions of faith. Either communal institutions or what do you call them? Fraternal organizations or whatever, the Kiwanis, the Elks, the stuff like that, or churches.
Little platoons,
exactly. And that they are not participating in the little platoon America, and they are feeling alienated and isolated and lonely and without resources.
They speak only in the language of victimhood and pathology. That's how everything is framed as they're being the victims of larger forces, bigoted forces, and part of the mental health gap, I think, is accounted for by the fact that they are so well versed in the vocabulary of mental illness and unwellness and all the rest of it, that this is their medium. This is what they swim and breathe in.
Just a few developments we should inform our audience. So Pam Bondi appointed a DEA chief to be the emergency commissioner of the Metro Police yesterday evening. That has been challenged in court as we speak by the D.C. Chief prosecutor. I don't know whether he's an attorney general or not, but he has sued to stop that. The position of the District of Columbia is that while the Home Rule Act gives Trump the ability to take over and direct the Metro Police Department for 30 days, it does not give him the authority to appoint an agent to run the department. So what we see here is not just the technicality and another court battle, another lawfare battle that will persist until probably the Supreme Court rules on it. But we also see a change in disposition on the part of Mayor Bowser. At the beginning of the week, when this story first broke, she was, to my mind, quite sensible. She was saying, look, this is the authority Trump has. She said that, we want crime to be reduced. So if there are more cops on the beat, if there are more people packing heat, representing law enforcement, then that might be a good thing. But someone got to her. And she has changed her tune. In a virtual town hall earlier the week, she was calling this out of the authoritarian playbook. And then she said, I think either on her way to Martha's Vineyard to pick up her daughter from camp or on her way back, that she was going to begin to fight Trump's overreach with every tool in her toolkit. So it means not only that it's going to be yet more work for the Justice Department, more work for the court system, more work for the Supreme Court, but it also means that the Democrats can't help themselves. This is not a fight they should want to have. If you want to be a attractive party in 2026 and 2028, you have to get right on crime. But being an obstacle to efforts to combat crime is not the way to do that.
Can I say something also about the a sort of parallel incident that is also in the news, and I think it covers comments that Abe was saying about mental health and also the sort of more serious element to some of this stuff, which is that the woman who a while ago spit on Ed Martin, who was the interim he was interim attorney general, right, at that moment, but he didn't get the.
Well, he was interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. Then Tom Tillis blocked him, and then we got Judge Janine, who has just been fantastic the past week.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so interim U.S. attorney. So a woman walked by. She spits on Ed Martin, and she says, "My name is Emily Gabriella Sommer, and you are served," and walked away. So she's not really trying to hide it. But the progression of this story. So yesterday, the reports were that she pleaded guilty to assaulting federal officers, and that she could, though she won't get the maximum, probably, she could theoretically spend 8 years in jail for her trouble. And so this is being played off as she spit on a temporary U.S. attorney, and now she's going to jail for 8 years. But as you read the story, you see that there's a little bit more to it. She was arrested 2 weeks later, and she spat on the U.S. Marshal who came through and told him, "I was just getting over a cold sore. I hope I gave you herpes." And then as they brought her into the vehicle to bring her, to the station, she kicked two U.S. Marshals, and she told all of them that she would, quote, "put a bullet in every one of you," end quote. So we're getting a bit more than just like she's a spitter. She's obviously a menace, right? As the story continues, there's a pretty funny sort of middle part of the story where the public defenders and the prosecution argue over whether spitting meets the terms of physical contact. It's a very Seinfeldian argument. But then they say near the end of the story that she was actually arrested because she had 2 pending misdemeanor charges in D.C. Superior Court. What were those charges? She damaged her next-door neighbor's apartment door with a metal rod. Okay? She tried to beat her way into her neighbor's apartment, and she, quote, "began talking about the war in Gaza and accused the victim of being involved in that," end quote. So we have a violent person. Okay, she took a metal rod to her neighbor's apartment, and she kicked 2 federal officers, spit on one, and threatened to put a bullet in each and every one of them. And then she had defaced the same apartment door the next month. She had misdemeanors for both of them, and she had told the authorities that she did it because her next door neighbor was a federal officer who was spying on her. Okay, so you have mental health, you have violence, you have all this stuff. And I think that's part of the lesson also of the sandwich guy, which is like, I'm not saying this guy is a real threat. I watched him throw the sandwich. I don't think he's a real threat. But, there is something else going on here, which is a kind of like psychotic break type mood among the population.
What's the expression?
The sort of resistance by any means necessary is bringing out the actual violent people,
Well, Luigi, right? It's Luigiism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But, if we go back to 2016, 2017, and we write an alternate history of that time, Trump's inauguration was met on the weekend of his inauguration by this nationwide Women's March demonstration. 3.5 million people. But some measures the largest demonstration in American history across the country. Peaceful, a little silly because of the hats, but a genuine expression of a genuine nationwide mood of uncertainty, discomfort, upset about Trump's victory, particularly in the wake of the things that he had said about women revealed in the Access Hollywood tape and the like. Now imagine a world in which that base had not found itself shunted off into Meshuggah land by the lawfare stuff, where it didn't end up with, oh, he's just an agent of the person he is about to meet today, Vladimir Putin, right? He is not, that's not who he is. He is this, gross, mean, misogynistic person who wishes to enrich himself at the country's expense. And that rather than to 3 years of this fantasy that we were going to be delivered from Trump in the course of his administration by the righteousness of the law in making whatever case that they could possibly make against him and getting him impeached or whatever, that there was a genuine opposition to Trump, not only substantively on the basis of things that he had done, but then also on some of the things that I think almost no one can defend him on, and particularly now no one can defend him on, which are the emolument-y stuff. People staying in his hotel, deals being made. This is now happening, double time, triple time here in 2025.
And we haven't even been talking about the emerging state capitalism.
Right, that's right. This bizarre.
To me, is very disturbing.
Yeah, the NVIDIA payoff to the government, Intel. Okay. All of this is very serious. And there was a moment at which liberals and the left could have been the sane opposition to Trump. And it turns out that people don't want to be sane. It's not fun to be the sane opposition. What is fun is he's a secret agent for Putin. There was a P tape, He's got guys where they're working. It's a gigantic thing behind the scenes. And here we are now with, again, he wins, comes into power. He's got the House, Senate, and then what do? They start celebrating violence against individuals. They are elevating not only Luigi Mangione, who of course didn't shoot Trump, but shot some kind of weird stand-in for late capitalist CEOs.
Father too.
Spitter, now Mr. Dunn, the sandwich thrower, the guy, the judge who let the
Wisconsin judge
out the side door.
Escape.
They are embracing illegality,
lawlessness,
terrorism, and all that what the resistance is. And I think rational people, among people who genuinely oppose Trump and want to see his legacy not, become the permanent fact of American politics, the ones that I know are falling into despair because because the focus is entirely wrong. If you want to stand in opposition to what is actually a very tiny Republican majority.
Yeah. So can I? Yeah. I think this is very interesting. In the first term, Pelosi was there, right? And yes, Russia was happening in the background, the Women's March. But for those first 2 years, Pelosi was fixated on 2018 and Trump's efforts to repeal Obamacare. And they knew that would be the issue, trying to get rid of coverage for pre-existing conditions, trying to kick kids off. 26 is not a kid, but that's the way they frame it. Kick kids off their parents' health plan. She was focusing on the economic issue. The fact that Pelosi is in the backbench now, far less powerful. Schumer is dealing with his own internal problems with this crazy base you describe. They had the opportunity with the One Big Beautiful Bill to talk about nothing but Medicaid for the next year. Medicaid and inflation. And what have they done since? It was Epstein coming right off the success of the Operation Midnight Hammer and the signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And now it's Trump fascism in Washington, D.C. There's one Democrat that I'm watching pretty close. Well, I'll name two, but the first one I'm watching, who I think is trying to channel his inner Pelosi and be an effective fighter against Trump, but in a way that is not total Luigiism. And that's Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, I know that might be a controversial statement. People hate Gavin Newsom. I get it. But if you watch what he's done, he's fought Trump on the ICE raids in L.A. and the National Guard. But he went to court. That court case is actually still ongoing, by the way, even though the National Guard is no longer there. Now he's picked a fight with Trump over the Texas gerrymander. Now he's thrown out all of his principles, of course. He's trying to actually end the independent commission that has redistricted California in a way that overwhelmingly favors Democrats in order to have the legislature pass a plan that overwhelmingly favors Democrats even more before next year's midterm election. But I do think he's doing a pretty effective job of like picking his battles, communicating that he kind of gets the joke. He did an all caps tweet the other day. And the other candidate I mentioned, the other Democrat, is Wes Moore of Maryland, who gave an interview to Fox. That in itself is important as we think about 2028, where he was asked about the D.C. crime initiative. And Governor Moore didn't take the bait and instead talked about all that he's done to help bring crime down in Baltimore. And it was a very savvy answer. So my point is there's a way to deal with what's happening, like the Democrats did in those first 2 years, that led to their great success in the House, 41 seats. But you just don't see it resonating, certainly not with the Democratic base and not with the media, but I repeat myself.
So we spun like 45 minutes out of the.
It's what everyone wants to talk about, John.
But we should, because these cultural moments are arguably far, and it's not just a cultural moment. I mean, it's a cultural moment because somebody caught it on an iPhone, which is how cultural moments are made now. And it is the entire
and they come to define policies and movements. And if the moment was instead that was caught on an iPhone that came to define this, if it was a National Guardsman beating someone with a baton, then it would be a total. But this is what has come out of it instead.
Right. I mean, the thing to do is to speed it up and to edit it so you stretch out the running part and you speed it up and you put the Benny.
He runs right into traffic. Do you see? He could have been hit. He could have been hit by a car if he wasn't careful.
Yeah, but it's like the Benny.
And lastly, by the way, the other crime here that no one's talking about is the sandwich. If I, as someone who grew up in an East Coast Ashkenaz Jewish household, if I had thrown a perfectly good sandwich, I would have been put in cherem. I would have been excommunicated.
Especially considering the hunger. The hunger.
But by the way, now to pull away from the joke part of this. So obviously, so he was drunk or whatever. What he did and why it actually isn't just a joke is he used literally what he had to hand as he lost complete control
You're absolutely right.
of himself and his emotions. And so what he had in his hand was a Subway soft sandwich.
Right.
But if he'd had a gun, he would have shot him. And if he'd had a truncheon in his hand, he would have swung it at the law enforcement officer's head. That's what happens when you lose control. That connects to Seth's story about the spitter, right? Yeah. That's the thing that you see in that piece of iPhone footage is ordinary liberal Americans dressed like they're from central casting, losing control of themselves. And Luigi Mangione may be that same person. We don't even know yet. No record, wealthy family, right?
Probably has an underlying mental illness.
I mean, one assumes that he has an underlying mental illness, but clearly it was in some form of check.
Right.
Because there's no record of his ever having intersected with any kind of law enforcement, or apparently, hasn't been wasn't institutionalized or sent it, whatever. We don't really know that yet, but I'm just saying something is going on where people are losing control. Now, people are nuts all over the place. I watched this footage last night of Representative Anna Paulina Luna explaining that interdimensional beings are coming through the brain-blood barrier to control our, the microwaves or whatever. And she's an elected member of Congress, so that's great that happened.
At some point in the past decade, a whole lot of crazy descended on the United States of America.
Yes.
And we are nowhere near.
No, it's got to work.
Getting through it.
Generation.
And the other part of the dangerous part of this, right, is that the spitter, I guess as we can call her, remember that this is not the misdemeanors, her attacking her smashing her neighbor's door with an iron bar because she blames her neighbor for Gaza. This is something you wouldn't hear about, except for the fact that she spat on an officer and then she got arrested. And then they had, these depositions and then she pleaded guilty. And now there's a court case in court records. And they say, by the way, she had these 2 misdemeanors and she was arrested, and stuff for that. If you want to get a sense, I think, of the way people in D.C. are thinking about crime, it's not just, if I walk down the street, am I going to get shot? Although some people, in some places they do worry that. But there's probably a feeling of chaos that is hard to quantify, but feels really real. If your neighbor comes at your door, with a metal rod, you're not going to sleep as well at night. That's just, and this is person on person. So, part of this is not just let's, aim a sandwich at a federal officer or a representative of, the Trump administration and law enforcement somehow. It's not just resistance. It's unleashing a kind of chaos within the private world. It's not just people rising against their government or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff happening that we don't hear about and we wouldn't otherwise know about. That's putting people on edge.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen now. You three are going to talk a little about Putin and Trump and the summit.
Okay,
and I'm going to go do some vocal exercises, because in a couple of minutes, I have to fulfill my promise from yesterday and sing a song in gratitude for us achieving our goal of 20,000 YouTube subscribers. And we got mail. We asked people. We got over 150 responses. The winner of the 3 songs, which were You'll Be Back from Hamilton, Yankee Doodle Dandy, and Ain't That a Kick in the Head, was Ain't That a Kick in the Head. So I have to sing Ain't That a Kick in the Head. But
a verse and a chorus, I believe.
Verse and a chorus. So I have to go and, because as people know, I sometimes get a frog in my throat. I need to go I need to be in pristine shape in order to do this. So please have a conversation about this matter.
Happily.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, so how's this? I'll throw this out there. Trump says that, he said a lot of things about the upcoming meeting, but most recently, I think he said, if it's going to be bad, I'll know it'll be a short meeting.
Right.
And if it's good, it will lead to another meeting about details. I have a prediction. It won't be a short meeting, but it will in the long run be bad.
It's fascinating how the administration has been playing down expectations since the announcement of the summit, which came together very quickly. We've heard it being described as a listening exercise. Trump has called it a feel-out meeting. He did say that he would know very quickly whether Putin was serious about peace. I think one reason that the meeting may not be short, even if Putin doesn't really show that he's serious, which I doubt he is that the 2 leaders will be holding a joint press conference afterwards. And of course, for most of us, this summons memories of the joint press conference they held after the Helsinki summit in 2018, where Trump sided with Putin's characterization of Russian interference in the 2016 election rather than the findings of the intelligence community. A lot has happened in the ensuing decade. Trump, I do think, comes in with a stronger hand. He has threatened economic sanctions on Russia. Russia's oil revenue is down 19% year over year. The war economy is starting to kind of overheat in ways that cause Putin trouble at home. Trump put these tariffs on India, a trading partner of Russia. That certainly got Russia's attention. And then, of course, Trump also got NATO to agree to 5% GDP spending and agreed to have NATO purchase weapons from the United States that can be transferred to Ukraine. So I think Trump is going in with a pretty strong hand. My sense is Trump wants to talk Ukraine, but the Russians want to talk about everything but Ukraine. The Russians signaling that they want to talk about renewing the New START treaty, the arms control treaty. They want to talk about economic deals, potential energy exploration. They don't want to talk about Ukraine. So for Trump, he needs to go in there. He needs to see if Putin is agreeable to a ceasefire or not. And if he's not, then I really think the best thing would be just to come home.
Seth, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he has the ability to just walk out of the room is the one thing that I don't,
Right.
I think that he, it's one thing to say, sitting from the Oval Office, well, I'm just, I'm tired of this. He's not being serious, and whatever. But does Trump have the willpower to literally stand up and walk out? As some of his advisors have been saying, well, if 5 minutes in he sees that Putin's not serious, he can leave. You can't. Will he? I highly doubt that he will, and I expect in the tradition of normal politicians that he will try to spin something out of it and not want his summit, the one that, as we talked about the other day, he's been waiting for, the type of summit at least he's been wanting this term, and not want it to look like an obvious failure. I think it's embarrassing for a president to do all this setup and have all this, Sturm und Drang, whatever, and walk out, and say, never mind.
And I also
sort of
think that Putin will furnish him with a crumb of something that he can spin into. That's my theory.
The fear is that Putin will say, well, we'll do a partial ceasefire at the air, and Trump will say, oh, but that's a good idea. I want Zelensky to do that too. But a ceasefire in the air, while it does protect some Ukrainian civilians, also maintains Russia's edge on the ground. So that would not be a fully satisfactory outcome. But I see that...
He's also, by the way, he's also going to reportedly offer some financial incentives too. He sees that Trump likes the idea of investments, American investments in, your resources, like he's doing with Ukraine. Putin is apparently prepared to offer something.
Remember, though, Trump doesn't see meetings in the same way that Washington sees meetings. For Washington, every meeting has to have some type of positive result, or else it was a waste of time and a blow to the president. For Trump, a meeting is a meeting. He just likes meeting people, and it might not lead to anything. And he met with Kim Jong-un twice, and nothing really came of either one. So it's very possible that he just holds the meeting, he wants to talk, and then nothing will happen. But I see that our star is ready.
Ain't That a Kick in the Head, written in 1960 by Jimmy Van Heusen and Sammy Kahn, performed by Dean Martin in the film Ocean's 11, and sung by me to my wife Ayala at our wedding reception. And so that is the song that you, our listeners, have asked me to sing, and I will attempt to do so. Remember, I don't have an orchestra behind me. Listen to my voice. Now I got to clear my throat. You see, this is why this was a very daring and risky thing to do.
We talked too long.
Okay. Ain't That a Kick in the Head? How lucky can one guy be? I kissed her and she kissed me. Like the fellow once said, ain't that a kick in the head? The room was completely black. I hugged her and she hugged back. Like the sailor said, quote, ain't that a hole in a boat? My head keeps spinning. I go to sleep and keep grinning. If this is just the beginning, my life is gonna be beautiful. I've sunshine enough to spread. It's just like the fella said. Tell me quick, ain't love a kick? See, I've ruined it now. In the head. She's telling me we'll be wed. She's picked out a king-size bed. I couldn't feel any better, or I'd be sick. Oh my God. What on earth? Tell me quick. You know what? This proves that I'm 64, because I would have been able to knock this out of the park once. Ain't love a kick. Tell me quick. Ain't love a kick in the head.
There we go.
Thank you. Embarrassing.
Wonderful.
I guess my career is
Bravo.
over. The career is over. The one time I have spent my life saying I, had this binary choice in my life to try to go into theater or not, and I didn't do so. And obviously, I would have had to retire at the age of 64 since I can't hold a note without developing throat troubles. But thank you very much. Thank everybody again. We will come up with a better prize when we set a new goal.
For our next challenge.
For our next challenge, there'll be something better than that horrible mess
It brought a smile to my face.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, and our listeners too. I bet you're going to hear it.
One note. Next week, we will not be doing live shows, live podcasts. We have recorded 5 interesting off-topic programs for your enjoyment. One about Broadway musicals that we love, one about great historical sites and great American sites that you may not know, and websites that you may not know because of a confusion about the word site. Then we did historical sites around the planet that might be worthy of your time. Then we did great books that we don't like, which was a fun one. And now I'm laboring to remember
the musicals, right?
And the music and Broadway. Did I mention the musicals? No, I didn't. And Broadway.
Did you mention the college books and games?
Oh, college books.
Oh, books for college students.
That we think a college student should read
and board games.
Entering college and our favorite board games. Yes.
Yeah.
So 5 shows next week. Please enjoy. We will be taking a break. Abe will be taking a break from the newsletter that he writes daily. Seth will be taking a break from the blogging. And we will see you last week of August. So for Matt, Seth, Abe, and the absent Christine Rosen, whose home is undergoing renovations, I am John Podhoretz. Keep the candle burning.